Back together again, eh?
Yeah.
Let's play.
On this podcast, we've talked multiple times about the 90s indie wave. The film festival circuit began to be used to scout new talent. Video cameras and filmmaking technology had become much more widely available, and there were many aspiring filmmakers who were eager to try to get spotted. A whole generation of filmmakers came out of Sundance Film Festival. These filmmakers would make an initial project on the cheap that would get a whole bunch of buzz on the film festival circuit, and then a larger production company would buy the distribution rights. Some examples included Kevin Smith, Wes Anderson, Jim Jarmusch, Quentin Tarantino, and Robert Rodriguez, who we're going to be talking about tonight. After making a short film called Bedhead in 1990, which earned him a spot in the University of Texas at Austin, Robert Rodriguez made his first feature-length film on a $7,000 budget.
It's not short at all. It's plenty of, I'm only using a few frames because it's an action sequence, so you only need a very small amount of film. That one cable that's tied around the pole right there, we put up, fastened it from that pole to a telephone pole across the street. And then what he does is slide across this with a homemade pulley device that we had a local blacksmith make us for $12 US. We tested it in Carlos's backyard. Action! Now you recognize this guy here. He's one of the bad guys in the movie. Instead of having a film crew, I would just use my actors. I mean, they're just standing around anyway, so he was helping me by pulling me in the wheelchair as I got this shot of Carlos going overhead. We're actually just waiting for our bus to arrive. Here's our bus. What I did was I got all the way down the street with a zoom lens.
Just this amount of money was a struggle to get, and Rodriguez raised half of it by being part of clinical drug testing experiments. El Mariachi was made for $1,700 less than the $9,000 that Rodriguez had planned on. Probably the first indie film to ever be under budget. Rodriguez took it to film festivals and used the $7,000 price tag as part of the marketing.
What do I care?
It would give it more style, more class to the place. This for almost nothing. My living comes mostly from tips.
El Mariachi was premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 1993, which was the same year that Wes Anderson made his debut with the short film Bottle Rocket. Rodriguez intended to try to sell El Mariachi to Latino straight-to-video distributors. However, it was bigger film distribution companies who ended up being interested in it.
If you're interested in making a movie, go make one, but make it cheap. Make it dirt cheap. Refuse to spend any money and see how much you can do with your creativity. So many people come up to me and tell me, oh yeah, I made this movie. We got it in for under, $200,000, but our investors are, we don't know what we're going to do with it. And it's such a big production when you make a big production out of it. Don't. You can have a lot of fun and do some really cool stuff with just, in your backyard with a few toys. And that's it. Good luck.
Carlos Gallardo, Rodriguez's friend, starred as El Mariachi, produced, and was the unit production manager. Columbia Pictures ended up liking El Mariachi and spent an additional $200,000 on post-production work, including transferring the print to film. Even at this early stage, Rodriguez's trademarks like the quick cuts, incredibly stylistic violence, and comedy mixed with action was already apparent. He'd go on to stamp his name on them in movies like Sin City. El Mariachi became the lowest budgeted film to ever gross $1 million at the box office. With that success, Robert Rodriguez began working on a sequel to El Mariachi. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Robert Rodriguez's Desperado. Rodriguez got a $7 million budget from Columbia Pictures to continue his trilogy. That allowed him to get stars like Antonio Banderas, Steve Buscemi, Cheech Marin, and Danny Trejo, and his friend, Quentin Tarantino.
The reason I had to be so prepared on this movie was because at this time, Hong Kong action movies were the best action movies in the world. Movies like The Killer and Hard Boiled had over 120-day shooting schedules. This movie, I was only going to have 38, so I couldn't be screwing around. I had to really know exactly what I was going to be doing, have all my shots chosen ahead of time, because for this particular sequence, we only had 2.5 days to get everything.
I'm just looking for work. There's no work here. Is there something to drink?
To make it look like we had more time, you had to have it planned out and shooting on video. as you'll see, is what really nailed it for us. Antonio really gets into the action.
Wait. Hey, slow it down.
Antonio is just a natural. That's why we didn't even bother to get a stunt double for him. We came up with stunts that he could do himself because he's just so athletic and energetic.
Antonio Banderas replaced Carlos Gallardo, who still served as Robert Rodriguez's co-producer and made a cameo in the film. After losing the love of his life, El Mariachi is on a mission to get revenge on the drug dealers and gangsters who were responsible for killing her and shooting his hand. All of the footage from El Mariachi of the hand being shot was reshot frame by frame with Antonio Banderas standing in. Desperado was also the breakout role for Salma Hayek. In the unknown time period between El Mariachi and Desperado, El Mariachi has become a fearsome legend, wandering Mexico and killing drug dealers and gangsters. One by one, El Mariachi has hunted down the people who work with Moco, the gringo drug lord who shot his hand. The last one, maybe, so he says, Bucho, is located in a small city, Ciudad Acuña, near the Mexican border. El Mariachi is now joined by Steve Buscemi, apparently playing himself, but not as an actor, as a sidekick.
And in walks the biggest Mexican I have ever seen. Big as shit. Just walks right in like he owns the place. Now, nobody knew quite what to make of him, or quite what to think. But there he was, and in he walked. It was dark, too.
El Mariachi still has the case of guns that he acquired in the original film. In El Mariachi, he is a simple musician who is mistaken for a violent criminal named Azul. In Desperado, El Mariachi appears to have become that ruthless criminal in his search for revenge. Bucho has the entire town, or so it seems, working for his drug empire. Salma Hayek's Carolina and a young boy that El Mariachi meets on the street are both part of it. Quentin Tarantino makes a cameo as a gringo who has come to the bar in town to score drugs. The two would go on to collaborate with Dusk Till Dawn, Grindhouse, and would trade off work in future films like Sin City and Kill Bill Volume 2. This much larger budget allowed Rodriguez to fully embrace his trademark style. Although brutally violent, the violence is stylistic and often comedic. There are rampant explosions, large gunfights, and the fact that the violence is so clearly over the top takes away from some of the brutality and makes it more palatable. Rodriguez would go on to take this into the highest possible gear with Machete and Machete Kills later on. Although $7 million was an infinitely larger sum than the $7,000 that he made El Mariachi for, Desperado would go on to gross $58 million at the box office, showing once again that Robert Rodriguez was a great investment.
Legend says, young man, you got a bet. The guy goes, okay, here we go. Pulls out his thing. He's looking at the glass, man. He's thinking about the glass. He's thinking about the glass. He's thinking about the glass. Thinking about his dick. Dick glass. Be the glass. Dick glass. Dick glass. And then he lets it rip.